Alright, we just had the gameplay feature premiere for MLB The Show 26, and today we're going to be talking about and showing off the stuff that they talked about during the stream, the good, the bad, and everything in between. So the first few things that they hit on were the big zone hitting and bear down pitching. Big zone hitting allows you to more or less choose one of the 9 different positions that they allow you to choose from and swing from there. And it's also kind of a way that if you aren't the best at zone hitting, you'll be able to do this, which is kind of similar, but at the same time, it's not as rewarding. This helps you if you can get the zone area to the general area that the ball is going to be going into, and then obviously timing the ball up as well as you can. They said that when you're doing this, unlike when you're playing with the zone hitting, you will not be able to get perfects here. The best you will probably be able to get are the good hits. So it's a little bit of a give and take where it's a little bit easier to be able to hit the ball. However, it doesn't give you as best of results that you were able to do when you use your normal zone hitting. They also talked about the bear down pitching where you're going to start with 0 of them, and as you throw more strikes and get more strikeouts, you're going to be building up the ability to use a certain amount of them. Certain pitchers may only have 2, certain pitchers may have 3 or 4, or I think 4 or 5 is the highest that any pitcher can have. The amount that you will get will be specific per pitcher. Once you take out a pitcher, all of that progress towards building up the bear down pitching will go away, and you'll have to restart from pitcher to pitcher. It will stay with you for the entire game if you leave that one pitcher in for the entire game, and you can use as many as you have. They said that it shouldn't be something that's filling up so fast to where you're doing it so often that it feels like it's just always happening. And they wanted it to be something that's a little bit more of a strategy of when you use it, how you use it, and things of that nature. There are 3 other things that they mentioned when it comes to hitting specifically. One of them was the fixed zone hitting. This allows you to use your normal zone hitting, but instead of when you release the stick, it just automatically goes back to the center. When you release the stick, it just stays where you last left it. So as somebody like myself who sometimes accidentally flicks the stick or lets go of the stick when I didn't necessarily mean to, it'll help me be able to actually hit the ball when I know the ball is going to go to a specific space, instead of being automatically brought back to the center. The other one is the PCI sensitivity. You're able to make the sensitivity of your PCI go faster, slower, or just stay around where you're used to it being for as long as it has been. And you can mix and match both of them to just potentially make things a lot better for yourself. The last thing that they mentioned that is basically hitting based is that when you're behind the plate and you're using a camera that's there, you can blur out the background behind all of the batters and the fielders. So that way, if you have trouble picking up pitches or you have trouble picking up different pitchers, or you have that potential of like some hitters' eyes being a little bit difficult for you, you can turn that on and it should be able to help you be able to pick up that pitch or the ball a little bit easier. Next, they talked a good amount about the attributes and what new attributes and how they'll work and all of that stuff. One of the big ones is that only the attributes that actually matter in any given mode will show up. As a lot of people who played MLB The Show 25 probably know, they did tend to boost certain players by upping their discipline or their durability as well. Those 2 things tend to always be high in certain players, kind of giving them a little bit of a boost when they probably shouldn't have had that boost. And of course, vice versa, if you're playing in an offline mode like Franchise or Road to the Show, only the stats that actually matter there will show up. That's where you'll have your durability and your discipline and all of that stuff as well. The other pretty big one is that when you're a pitcher, you're going to have differences between your versus left and versus right for hits and Ks per 9. This is something that they said that should in turn potentially help out with dealing with the switch hitters. If you have a right-handed pitcher who happens to have better hits per 9 or Ks per 9 versus left-handers. But in doing this and in allowing this, they did mention that the PCI shrinkage for versing the same handedness is not going away. So if a right-handed batter is versing a right-handed pitcher, they throw a slider down and away, that shrinkage of the PCI is not going to go away. And I'm sure the people who are always playing in Hall of Fame, Legend, they're not going to like that, and I can understand that. I'm sure it's hard enough hitting against, especially when we get to the point where we have 99s, just throwing gas, having great control, having great movement, and your PCI is as tiny as it can be. Not even to mention that you could get your PCI on the right spots, even with that tiny little bit, and then you still get a weak hit. But it's still there, and it does suck. They also went over how the catchers now have the pop time attribute, which will affect how quickly they're able to get the ball from the glove all the way down to second base for a potential stolen base attempt or backpicking somebody or anything of that nature. So in the grand scheme of things, it's going to be interesting to see how the pop time works with the arm accuracy and the arm strength to see how often you might be able to backpick somebody or get somebody out on a stolen base. And then seeing how maybe easy it is to steal off of somebody who doesn't have a great pop time or a great arm strength. And then the last big thing that they talked about when it comes to the attributes is the going forward, going backwards, going left, and then going right for all the different fielders other than the catcher. I think this is going to be a really interesting way of dealing with the reaction times when it comes to the different players. Because yes, there are some players who are very, very good at going forwards and on a ball, but have a lot of trouble going backwards on a ball. So when it comes to dealing with the potential fielding situations of what you want to do with your lineup and your configuration, I think that can have a good play in trying to make sure you put out the best potential lineup in any given situation. The one difference between this specific reaction stuff is that they mentioned that in Road to the Show, the reaction attribute itself will still just be that one thing instead of forwards, backwards, left, and right. Because they felt that it's always that possibility that they don't want you to put in too many tokens into getting all of that. So they just made it one singular thing. Finally, we have a few other things to talk about that didn't really have any very specific places to go into. They, of course, went over their whole adding a whole bunch of different animations as they do every year. They also mentioned that the ABS system is coming into the game, but it will be for offline only. So no ABS stuff for the online stuff. They said that the online umpires are supposed to have perfect accuracy. We'll see how well that works, because sometimes, especially playing MLB The Show 25, I don't know if they're supposed to have perfect accuracy on the umpires and online, but there have been plenty of times where I have dotted a pitch and then it did literally nothing, and it was just a ball. And the last thing that I really want to talk about today is the fact that they mentioned that when you're playing an offline, you can have the ability to choose whether or not you can have a pitcher pitch from the windup or the stretch. However, when you're playing in online modes, it looks like the pitchers will, for the most part, always pitch out of the stretch, I guess to make things faster. But that I'm going to need to see more on to fully understand if they just mean literally every pitcher just pitches from the stretch all the time. Or not, you know. So we'll see how that all works out. Either way, that's it for this video. Next week we have the Road to the Show that they're going to talk about, so we'll be seeing how everything works there for that.